Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay. Warning, the following video may contain adult language and themes. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. If you have a problem with this, stop playing this video now. So I just got done watching a movie called The Beyond. It was released in 1981, and I believe it's an Italian horror movie. Originally titled, my Italian's terrible, but I believe it's E tu vivrai nel terrore la Aldilla. That's probably not correct. But anyway, it was originally an Italian horror movie. It's got a 6.9 on an Internet Movie Database. It was directed by Lucio Fulci, and it was written, I believe the writers were Dardano Sacchetti, and yeah, I've never heard of these. Yeah, it was also written by Lucio Fulci and Giorgio oh man, I can't pronounce their names. But I'm not that familiar with Italian horror movies. Probably the director that I've seen the most of are Dario Argento, and I think they're pretty good. But the way I describe my experience with Italian horror is that they're not really that deep. They seem deep, but they're not. They can be really confusing at times, and they don't really tie together the story, but they're directed really well, usually. They're really stylistic, they're directed really artsy-like, they have a lot of classical music, and it's just really well-directed stuff. So, I mean, I'd sum it up as really well-directed and artistically directed schlock, is how I'd sum it up. Which I guess is better than American horror movies, which are usually adequately to poorly directed schlock. But, yeah, someone pointed that out on one of these message boards I was reading, that, you know, this director, Lucio Fulci, a lot of his horror movies just really aren't that deep. You know, they try to be deep, and people try to rationalize that they're deep, but they're not. They're just sensationalism, exploitation, that's directed really well and directed in an artistic manner. And I don't think this is an exception. Basically, the summation of what this movie is about is, this young woman inherits this hotel in Louisiana, and apparently it has a strange history where, like, I believe like 60 years ago, this person who was living there was killed or something by this lynch mob. They thought he was like a witch or a warlock or something, and basically, I think they blamed him for like curses or something, but it turns out that the hotel was built upon this burial ground. I don't know if it was an Indian burial ground, but it was this burial ground, which is one of the 7 gates of hell. So I don't think it was really the warlock's fault, or the guy's fault, but they just killed him anyway. They, like, crucified him and, like, beat him to death and shit. And I think they, like, buried him in the hotel or something, with concrete or something. And so this lady, 60 years later, inherits it, and she's going about fixing it up. This lady who's sort of like this roaming, really hot woman who just, like, dabbles in all these things, and she's gonna try her luck at this hotel business. So she's trying to fix it up, but she doesn't have much money. And these people, she like inherited the hotel, and she inherited also like these servants that came with it, like this old woman and her kind of mentally challenged son. And this movie like does a lot of cheap scares where like she's like, oh yeah, I inherited the hotel, and this woman and her son, and then the person she's talking to is like, I've never heard of those people. I've lived here all my life. And she like meets this blind girl who tells her to sell the hotel. You know, it's cursed. And then she tells somebody about the blind girl, and then he's like, and she tells this person where the blind girl lived, and he's like, nobody's lived there for 50 years. And it's like, boom, 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 you know? It's like, I've never heard of that girl. So you're always wondering, is this all in her imagination or not? So it's those kind of scares. And basically what starts happening is she starts trying to fix it up. And like this painter who's like painting the house like sees this apparition inside the house, you know, like this ghost, and it's just like it appears, and he like and he falls off his platform, his ladder, and he like gets gravely injured, and I don't know if he dies or not. They don't expand upon that, but he's like critically injured, and she's like, oh, that was weird, but I'll still keep trying to fix up this house. And she calls this plumber over to pump out the basement because it's flooded, and the plumber like gets ripped to shreds in the basement, and like this corpse, and they go down there and they find the corpse of him, and they also find this other corpse that's been dead for 60 years. which we're assuming is the warlock guy, whose name is Schweik or something like that. Schweik, I can't remember what his name is. Anyway, they find the corpse of the warlock, and so they take them to the morgue. And the lady who inherited the hotel is still like, well, 2 deaths and 1 corpse in the basement. I'm still putting my foot down. I'm still not going to sell the place. I'm still going to try to make it work. And it's like, come on, lady, these are 1,000 bad omens, you know what I mean? And room 36, I believe, which is where the warlock lived when he lived there, the bell keeps ringing like the buzzer, and she's like, well, no one's up there, and she's like, well, it must just be faulty wiring, and it's like, dude, lady, take the hint, your hotel is fucking haunted. So yeah, the lady is going about trying to fix it up, and even more weird stuff happens, like the wife of the plumber who died goes to the morgue to change the guy's clothes into the clothes he usually wore so he can be buried in them, and she gets killed there as well. She dies there as well, and it's like, wow. Don't you think this would be a huge deal by now? All these deaths coincidentally linked with this house, and so like, and this little girl is like orphaned, the daughter of the plumber, and is orphaned now because the plumber died and his wife died. So, and she's at the funeral, and so like the woman's still like putting her foot down. It's like, I'm still not selling it, and then she starts seeing stuff. She goes into room 36 and she sees like the corpse of the warlock like crucified on the wall, and she's like, ah. She runs, and she gets a friend who works at the hospital. She meets this doctor, and they sort of hit it off, and she meets him, and she's like, oh, it's terrible, I saw this crucified person in room 36, and she goes in, they go back in there, and he's not there, and and the doctor's like, well, you're just seeing things, you need to get some rest, and basically, a lot of other stuff happens like that I can't remember, and I'm not mentioning, because a lot of stuff happens in this movie. Like, she has this friend who's also helping her, try to renovate the place, and he goes to this other friend, I don't even know what his name was. He's so insignificant in the movie, but he goes to, excuse me, he goes to get the city plans so they know, how the foundation is, everything. He goes there, and he goes up he gets on this ladder to go get the book off the shelf, and he falls off because, like, again, he falls off because of like a flash of lightning, and he gets knocked unconscious, and all these tarantulas come out and rip him to shreds. And we never hear about that again. But I mean, but if we did, and the woman heard it, it'd be like, okay, lady, you need to get rid of this place, like, because obviously it's cursed, obviously. And one thing this lady sees when she goes into room 36 is this book. Man, I cannot remember what the book said, but it's like this book of like, it's got this weird title on it. It's sort of like the Book of the Dead or something. But she goes back in, when she goes back in there, she can't find it. And the doctor finds it in the deserted house that supposedly the blind girl lived in. And the blind girl ends up dying. Like, she gets killed by her seeing eye dog, because the zombies, like, as the movie progresses, more and more zombies are like appearing back to life and stuff, and haunting people and stuff. And the zombies basically get the dog to kill her. So it reminds me a lot of Dario Argento's movies. Like, didn't in Suspiria, didn't like a blind guy get killed by a seeing eye dog? Anyway, this movie also reminds me a lot of Inferno, another Dario Argento movie. So basically what ends up happening, the doctor finds that book, and he reads it. A lot happens in this movie. He reads the book, and he finds out that the hotel was built on one of the 7 gateways of hell. And so he goes back to the hotel and goes to the woman who owns the hotel, and he's like, you need to tell me who you really are, because this book says that your hotel is on one of the 7 gates of hell. And then at this point, all shit breaks loose. Like, they're in the basement when he goes to confront her, and like this lightning starts flashing, and the basement starts shaking, and they run out of the house, and she's like, oh my god, what's going on? And he's like, I have no idea, because now the doctor's starting to believe her because all this shit's happening. And so they're like, we need to go back to the hospital, to call up he's like, I need to call the FBI, we need to get the police involved. And so they go back to the hotel, and then all these zombies start attacking them. Like, the movie's pretty much gone full out, like, horror movie at this point. Like, there's no more suspense. Like the zombies are pretty much coming out to get them, and like the doctor gets a gun from his desk, a revolver, and he's like shoot blasting away at the zombies. And one thing that kind of annoyed me about this movie is that he keeps shooting the zombies in the body. Then he finally shoots one in the head. You know, they're the typical George A. Romero slow moving zombies, and he shoots one in the head, and the zombie finally falls. And then what does he do? He keeps shooting them in the body. He shoots more zombies in the body. Then he'll shoot one in the head. Then he'll fall. Then, like as they're running away in the hospital, he'll shoot some more in the body. Then he'll shoot one in the head. It's like, dude, get the hint. Shoot him in the head. Go for the head. You know, obviously these are the George A. Romero brand of zombies. So I mean, get the hint, man. Like, and what basically ends up happening is that they run away. They go in the basement of the hospital because they can't get out because the zombies are like surrounded the hospital, and when they go in the basement, it like all of a sudden transitions to the basement of the hotel. So like, wow, this is weird. So you almost feel like they're in an alternate dimension now. Like the minute the guy went to confront her about the book, you know, it's almost like they went to an alternate dimension, or the gates of hell, I guess, have finally opened, and it's just all crazy because they get transported from the hospital to the basement of the hotel, and they go down there and they just see all these this burial site. And it's like this surreal, like, it looks like hell basically, and then it pans to the doctor and the woman, and they have white colored eyes like they're possessed or something, and then the movie ends. Yeah, this movie, I wasn't surprised. This is a lot like a lot of Italian horror movies I've seen. Like it's just, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. A lot of plot threads are left unresolved. It feels like it's deep, but it's really not. It's just a sensationalist exploitation, you know, horror movie. That's all it is. But it's directed really artistically and way better than most exploitation movies are. But this movie, this movie feels a lot like Inferno, meaning the plot kind of was all over the place, a lot of unresolved stuff. Plot kind of suffered, but it's directed really well. I would say Inferno, it was directed a little better and was a little bit more stylistic than this one. But this one, this is probably better than a lot of American horror films. But this is probably one of the weaker Italian horror films though I've seen. I also saw City of the Living Dead, which was also directed by the same guy, but I thought it was way better than this. It was probably just confusing and all over the place, but it was much better directed. It had much better atmosphere, and it was way scarier. But yeah, so I would probably give this one, I'm thinking a 6 out of 10. I may adjust the score as I go back and look what I've rated other horror movies, so I don't rate it relative to other crappy horror films. Like, I don't rate it below other crappy horror films. But yeah, overall, I didn't really like this one that much. It was okay. There was a few cool parts. Like, the special effects look really dated. There were some really cool kills, but the special effects just look so dated that it kind of pulled you out of it. And I've seen other horror movies from this time where the special effects didn't look dated. Like, I think in City of the Living Dead, like, this woman, like, starts crying blood, and it looked really, really well done, and she starts puking up her guts. Yeah, that was pretty crazy, but that looked really well done. This one kind of had some problems. Like, yeah. Anyway, so probably about a 6 out of 10. Again, it's called The Beyond, directed by Lucio Fulci, released in 1981. Who starred in it? I don't think I recognized anybody. None of the actors that I can see on Internet Movie Database have a profile picture, so I don't think any of them are really that well known. Let's see, Lisa Merrill. Wait, no, those are the characters. Catriona MacColl, David Warbeck, Cynthia Monreal. Yeah, I don't recognize any of these people. But anyway, you could do a lot worse. It's probably better than a lot of American horror movies. But as far as Italian horror movies go, it's pretty average. I'd say 6 out of 10. Anyway, take it easy. Have a nice day. Bye.